Welcome today to Green is Good, and today we have on the show, and we're so excited to have on the show our great friend and a friend of Green is Good, actress, filmmaker, producer, writer, Paige Donner, who's coming to us again from Paris, France. Welcome to Green is Good, Paige.
Thank you, John. I'm so happy to be here. And the day couldn't be more magnificent. It's pretty much like the first real spring day. So we've got some sunshine today, which is really great news.
Well, we're so happy. I'm so happy to have you on. We just got back on the air. We're on Sirius XM, America's Talk Channel 166 across the United States, and then uploaded on the iTunes network across the world after it airs in America. And we're just thrilled. You're on one of our first shows because you deserve to be, because you were always one of our favorite people when we used to be on radio, terrestrial radio. So thank you for coming on from Paris, Paige. It's so wonderful to have you back.
Well, John, congratulations. You deserve all the success that's coming your way. You do such a great job with the show, and I'm absolutely honored to be featured as one of your guests. Again.
Well, thank you. Well, last time we were talking more about the hotel business and the greening of the hotel business, and today you're going to be talking more about food and wine and climate change and all these fascinating, wonderful issues that, we touch us all. So why don't we just start and talk a little bit about what you've been up to and the journey you've been on, and this is your time, Paige, just to share the journey you've been on since you last came on Green is Good. Why don't you start with just wine, local wine and food?
Oh, well, yes, I'm thrilled to. I'm absolutely thrilled to. Well, being in Europe afforded me more of a chance to delve more deeply into the whole topic and subject of wine, and because as you know, John, I came from it, I still actually and have been reporting still for the International Herald Tribune, soon to be known as the International New York Times, by the way.
Yep. That
will be announced soon, or starting to be announced. But on issues of sustainability, I've been able to kind of merge the two passions, and so that's resulted now. It resulted in November of 2011, an article that I was assigned that appeared in the International Herald Tribune on the topic of wine and climate change. And since I've been able to actually, develop that a little bit further, and it's now a documentary film project on that topic, on the topic of wine and climate change. So it was kind of really great because I was able to take my professional reporting on sustainability issues and merge it with my personal passion, my blog, my local food and wine blog. And so I was able to come up with, I marry the two and come up with this project.
Well, that's awesome. And, for our listeners out there that are just listening in just now, we've got Paige Donner on. She's in Paris, France. And you have a wonderful WordPress local wine site. It's called Local Food and Wine .wordpress.com. I'm on it right now, and it is just gorgeous, and it has some amazing articles on it. Why don't you talk a little bit about this WordPress site that you have and what you're platforming on it?
Okay, yeah, with absolute pleasure, John. Well, the funny thing is, and this will all, circle back as we continue to talk about the issue too of wine and climate change. I actually started that website when I kind of rocked up on the shores of the Okanagan Valley in British Columbia, which is known. That was right prior to my assignment starting for covering the Olympics, the Winter Olympics there in 2010. So that was kind of my first introduction to what they like to call themselves the Napa of the North. And because I had sort of just arrived in this just idyllic, beautiful wine region of British Columbia, and I became fascinated with, writing about it. And that's kind of that is actually where the genesis of local food and wine started. And also it kind of married to the region very well because British Columbia and Vancouver prides itself on being one of the first places to really be strong proponents of the whole local food movement. So people there are really dedicated to the principles of eating locally and organically as well. And then the wine of the Okanagan is just, it's a young region, but it's an amazing region. So then when I came over to Europe, to France, I just continued. I mean, France is the capital. You know, the French cuisine was actually made a UNESCO heritage. It's got UNESCO heritage designation. So, I mean, how can you not write about food and wine in France?
Wow. And then so you through your writings, like you said, you know, when you were talking about the connections between wine and climate change, you've now developed this concept into a film. So tell our listeners where the film is and what are you exploring in the film that, you know, articles don't lend themselves to?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, John. Well, you know, I was really I was thrilled actually when my signing editor at the International Herald Tribune gave me the go ahead to do the article on wine and climate change, and he knew that I had spent some time in Bordeaux, and that I also am very familiar with you know, the California wine regions, namely Napa, and those are two areas that the scientists have been the climate scientists have been looking at very closely for the last decade in, you know, monitoring climate change and how this could affect viticultural areas. Wine grapes and viticulture are seen or have long been recognized by climate scientists as being the most sensitive agricultural crop in terms of climate change. So what you see happening in those in wine regions is kind of like harbingers for what could be you know, what's coming down the pike for other agricultural regions. So yeah.
You know, so explain to us though, is climate change you know, it's affecting so much. You know, Paige, I've realized in California our weather patterns have changed. This winter in New York, I felt like it was so much different than any other winter I experienced when I was growing up here. How is it really affecting wine for people who enjoy local food and wine, for people who enjoy the fun, the excitement, the pure pleasure that food and wine bring us all? Is climate change going to affect our opportunity to enjoy wine in the future? And what's your thoughts on that? And is that going to be explored in your film?
Yeah, you know, another great question, John. Yeah, you know, in the film, what I can show more than you can in print is that, you know, wine is basically a family industry. You know, it's about people. It's about people cultivating the land. You know, I mean, even the best wine makers and growers are often very, very humble and very, you know, just really down to earth people. And they're the first to say, "Hey, I'm a farmer," you know. And so that's something the human side of it lends itself much more to telling this tale through film. And then, more specifically to your question, John, that's the big question, actually, that the scientists are asking themselves. Is this going to affect how we enjoy wine? Now, everyone is kind of abuzz because on April 8th, the proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, so just last Monday, they released a study that examines the climate, you know, these climate change issues. And what they've come up with is that it's a lot more serious than anyone had ever prior to this had really wanted to acknowledge. I mean, you know, some of the foremost scientists, there's a scientist out of the University of Oregon called Greg Jones, and he's really recognized as one of the most, like the foremost climate scientists in terms of viticulture. And he's been saying these things for, well, at least since 2005, you know. And when there's an article published, and he's come out with a couple of books, and I cited him at length in my International Herald Tribune article. But this study just came out, and it's a composite study from University of Davis. The lead scientist on it is Lee Hannah, Hannah. So you can Google it and easily find the PDF and read the study yourself. So Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, or PNAS.org, and Google under Lee Hannah. So what they're finding is that they're in certain regions. Okay, it's not across the board. It's just certain optimum regions. Anything with a Mediterranean climate the area of viticultural capacity for cultivation basically may actually be reduced to up to 73%.
Wow, unbelievable.
Okay? Yeah, it is unbelievable, but it's not across the board bad news, because other areas then will be increased. So parts of Northern California, North America, not Northern California, but North America. So that would be Oregon, Washington, the Okanagan Valley, which is, British Columbia.
Right.
And then parts of Northern Europe, like the area of Champagne, is predicted to fare quite well. And of course, the English are related, because they're saying, well, look, pretty soon we're going to be able to have thriving Pinot Noir and Chardonnay vines, and we'll be able to give you in France some competition. We'll be growing, we'll be making great wines,
That's so
by 2050 ourselves. So it just really depends on the wines that you like,
got it,
and the regions that you're attached to as a wine enthusiast.
If you just joined us now, we're on the phone with Paige Donner, who's a great friend of ours, and she's in France, and she's talking about local food and wine and the impact of climate change, and also her film project. Go to localfoodandwine.wordpress.com to see all of her great work. Paige, just give me a little timeline. When do you expect? What is your vision for how long it's going to take to produce and then release your film?
Oh, well, that's a great question. Well, I'm still doing that dance of being in pre-production and getting all the ducks lined up and that kind of stuff. And I have been approached by several entities who have. We're in talks of underwriting the production and that kind of thing. So I would love to see it come out by 2014. And I'd actually, my goal, I guess, is probably, I don't know, maybe it's a little bold to state it outright, but because I have a cousin who qualified his documentary in 2007 for Academy nomination, and in fact was.
Wow.
He did have an Academy-nominated documentary film. So now, because it's in the family, I'm like, well, I really want to get this and be able to have it at least qualify it for Academy nomination. So
I have to ask you, Paige. You've spent now a lot of time in France, and you know so many people, and you're doing so many fascinating and relevant things in terms of writing and producing. I really look up to you for all this kind of stuff. But what is your favorite type of wine? What do you enjoy? If you're going out tonight with some friends, what do you drink?
Oh, John. Well, thank you very much for those really kind words. And I have to say back at you, you're just one of the greatest green champions in the world of environment, and a great friend too. So thank you for that, John. It means a lot coming from you. And as to your question, that is such a difficult question. It is, because I have been afforded the most monumental experiences since I've been, here in Europe and back in France, in terms of the wines that I've been able to taste. But maybe, I guess the simple answer to that is that I have to say, and I hope this doesn't come off wrong, but I have to say I do really have champagne taste.
Oh my gosh. I was just going to ask you, it must be so amazing to have Champagne close to Champagne, France, or in Champagne, France. That must just be an amazing experience.
It really is. And the funniest thing is, since I've been in France, I've found out that 68% of the champagne actually stays in France and never even gets exported.
They don't even export it. They love it so much. Good. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
In your writings, I've read the quoted phrase "too late for 2 degrees of Celsius." What is that? I'm unfamiliar with that. Explain to our listeners what you mean by that.
Yeah, another great question, John. That actually refers to a report that came out back in November, and at that point, that was the cutting edge report. Now eclipsed by this PNAS report, but that was released by PricewaterhouseCoopers, and I actually do allude to that. I reference that on my short film, Wine and Climate Change, my little teaser that's on Vimeo.com/local food and wine. You can also find it on YouTube. But it's a report that basically says that we are on such a trajectory of not having reduced our carbon, our CO2 emissions in time, that by 2050, we will not, well, certainly by 2100, we will not have been able to keep our climate, we will not have reduced our carbon emissions sufficiently to keep us in check of global warming of 2 degrees Celsius or less. So I hope I stated that clearly enough. So basically what that is they're saying, the report is saying, look, we haven't gotten our act together in time to keep our climate change trajectory within safe limits. So it's basically saying, this is a red alert, folks. We have got to address what we're doing to the climate, whether it's man-made or whether it's, whatever it is, we've got to do what it takes to keep the carbon gas emissions in check so that we don't go on this trajectory.
Right.
Where the climate is impacting our agricultural land use to the degree that we will not be able to grow food sufficiently. Our water, will be impacted to the degree that we won't, it will be Earth as we will not recognize it.
That makes sense. And that leads to this, we're down to the last 3 minutes or so, unfortunately, for this show. But that leads me to the next question, Paige. We like to platform issues here and talk about important issues that we're all facing and that are very relevant to all of us. But we also like to talk about solutions. And Paige, you get to travel so much and you've seen so much in your young life. Talk about a little bit what can we do to help push back the trends towards climate change, and what can especially food and wine enthusiasts do to try to ensure that they get to enjoy good food and wine, local good food and wine, for the rest of their years and for their children's and grandchildren's years?
Yeah, great question. It's, it really does come down to, in terms of enjoying local food and wine, it's always great to, buy as locally as possible. And then also just, in terms of impacting the Earth's climate, it's just extremely important that we all do our part, whether we drive less or, we just make do, with less. And also, I'm a big fan of investing in technology and research and development. I mean, I really believe in, humanity's capacity for adaptation and being able to use technology to alleviate certain problems. So I'm a huge advocate for, R&D and using our brains, to overcome some of these
challenges that we have.
Challenges, exactly. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, Paige, any last thoughts? We're down to the last minute or so, and any last thoughts you like to leave, pearls of wisdom you like to leave our listeners with?
Yeah, I encourage people to get anybody who likes to drink a glass of wine. Visit whatever wine region that has always tickled your fancy. Just go and do it. Drive through the vineyard, have a picnic with your loved ones in the vineyards with a beautiful bottle of wine, and just enjoy it. I mean, the earth is such a beautiful, lovely, nurturing, wonderful place to spend time in. Just do it, and your relationship with the earth will be so much more enhanced.
Well, thank you, Paige. And, Paige, you're always welcome to come back. We're going to want you to come back and share your journey and share all the progress you're making and all the change that you're effectuating. We're looking forward to your film being produced and released. And for all our listeners out there, to learn more about Paige and the great work she's doing, go to localfoodandwine.wordpress.com. Paige Donner, you are a visionary thought leader, a great green evangelist, a good friend, and truly living proof that green is good.
Thank you so much, Don. That means the world to me.